HCAM programming is supported by our viewers, thank you, and by Phipps Insurance Agency, representing companies such as MapFree Insurance. Their family-owned independent agency is deeply rooted in the communities they serve and offer time-tested insurance products to fit individual needs. Since 1950, Phipps Insurance specializes in home, auto, business, condo, and renters insurance. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of HCAM News. I'm HCAM News Director Tom Nappy, here to fill you in with what's happening in Hopkinton. On today's edition of HCAM News, Hopkinton Youth and Family Services educates about substance abuse and much more. But first, Ramadan was celebrated at Hopkinton High School. The Hopkinton High School Muslim Student Association teamed up with the South Asian Circle of Hopkinton to host a celebration of Ramadan. Here's a look at the festivities.
At their school. Thanks to the Hopkinton High School administration for supporting us, especially our Vice Principal, Mrs. Tice, who helped us form the association and help with the setup and background details of this event. And a special thanks to Mr. Willander, our club advisor, who sat but he always strives to learn more about Islam and encourage us in all that we do. I would like to thank everyone who is attending for their support, especially coming out on a weekday for your first or second day of Ramadan to support the youth. Jazakallah. Lastly, I would like to thank our fellow MSA members. As you hear your name, please come up to the front so you can take a quick look. These people include our co-founders, Yassine Silva, our secretary, Wafia Saida, our treasurer, and a special shout out to Aya Kodi, a board member, who set up the prayer room before the MSA was even assembled, and many of our MSA board, including Hamza Haider, who contributes many ideas that help us grow as a community. This event could not have happened without your help. Ramadan Mubarak, may all of our fasts and prayers be accepted. Ameen. Thank you.
Diversity is our unity. When we rise together, we rise in strength. Ramadan is a time for spiritual growth through patience, acts of kindness, and being helpful to all. May this holy month of Ramadan be a happy and blessed month for all of you. Let's enjoy tonight as a way to love, honor, and support one another. Ramadan Mubarak to everybody here tonight. Thank you for having us, and I would be remiss if I did not thank the most incredible Hopkinton High School, the faculty, the leadership for doing what you do so well every single time.
The first idea is the idea of belief, much like the founding of this country. When we say that all men are born equal, that's a belief. And then we strive to constantly improve democracy in order to make sure that that promise translates into reality. The same idea exists in Islam as a starting point. So the starting point is we begin with the belief that we have a common creator, and that creator is worthy of worship and worthy of belief, and that informs our values and our starting point. How do we connect them is the next question. For that, liturgy is very important to us. That's called salah. Now, liturgy is the mechanism by which we connect to our creator in order for us to have that bond that will remain through our lifetime and hopefully after our lifetime as well. The third rubric cultivates within us something that is called our charitable self. For us to be fully human, we need to be charitable. And charitable means that we have to prefer others over ourselves, and we have to give up our selfishness for the good of the common. So we invest in that as our third practice. The fourth one is the one that we are talking about here tonight, which is called fasting. In short, fasting, translated from the Islamic word that describes it, which is called sawm or siyam, if you render that into English, it simply means abstain. So fasting, again, the important idea I started with, is a practice. It's not an idea. Fasting is not a cerebral rationalization of a certain idea. It's modeling practice in a certain way. So what is that way? What is the abstinence here, or abstaining from something, which is giving up something for a higher purpose? What is that about? Fasting is an encompassing practice that requires us to abstain from many things that would come as mundane pleasures in our lives.
Be on the lookout for the full presentation airing on HCAM. Hopkinton Youth and Family Services had a large inflatable brain on display at Hopkinton High School to help educate students how substance addiction affects the brain. Jason Verhusky, Director of Youth and Family Services in Wayland, took us through the display and depicted how substances and addiction affect a human brain.
Hello, my name is Jason Verhusky. I am the Director of Youth and Family Services for the town of Wayland, as well as the Wayland Cares Prevention Coalition. I'm really excited to be here today with the giant mega brain behind me, talking to you a little bit about brain science, pathways to addiction, in different ways that both the brain works and how we can hopefully help our youth make healthy choices, or encourage them to make healthy choices to have a healthy brain. So come on in. All right. So as we enter the brain, you'll notice there's a whole bunch of different things going on here. The first thing I'm going to talk about a little bit is the plasticity of the brain. So basically you can see that there's different functions of the brain. So there's normal, there's learning, there's degeneration. And the reason why I bring this up is the human brain doesn't fully develop until about the age of 25. And the reason why that's so important when we're working with young people is to encourage them to continuously make those healthy decisions as they're growing up, as they're learning, as their brain is fully developing, and making all those really important pathways. Those pathways just multiply and multiply and multiply until about the age of 11 or 12. At that point in time, our brain starts to sculpt itself and it starts to reduce those pathways and basically fine-tune them a little bit to the areas that we're interested in, things that we really are passionate about, in different areas of decision making. The reason why I think this is super important is in those really crucial years when we're faced with a lot of decision making, we're starting to get more independence. At that point in time, questions around things like alcohol, vaping, cannabis use, all of those things start to raise. And basically at that point in time, if we start to introduce those substances to our body, we can permanently alter the way that those pathways are affected, how they continue to connect with each other, and also how we make decisions. When our brain is in the process of sculpting those pathways, we start to have more emotion tied into our decision-making skills. And that's not a bad thing whatsoever, but it's just one of those things that we need to be aware of, that our young people don't necessarily always associate all the risks associated with decisions they're making, especially around substance. One of the things I want to show you a little bit further down here is with those decisions, and when we talk about things like marijuana's impact on the brain, or alcohol consumption, or opioid consumption at that point in time, is when we start to talk about addiction and how our brain functions with addiction. So, because the brain doesn't fully develop until about the age of 25, for every year previous to that, we're more and more likely to become dependent on substance at that point in time if we start to regularly introduce it into our body when our brain is in that sculpting mode. So basically, if we start ingesting cannabis, for instance, at that point in time, at a young age of 11 or 12, our likelihood to be dependent on it later in life becomes exponentially higher. So for instance, the average for people having addictive struggles later in life is about 3.2%. But if we start to introduce, whether it be cannabis or alcohol or opioids, at an earlier age, at that point in time, that number goes all the way up to about 14%. If every year we wait to potentially introduce those substances, especially to the point of intoxication, that percentage rate for addictive potential continues to go lower and lower and lower, so we'll have less issues hopefully later in life. It's one of the main reasons why we really, really, really encourage our young people to not necessarily never use something, but at least to wait as long as they possibly can, so they give their brain the best chance of being fully developed and fully functioning before they start to use substance. With all of that, a couple more things. Dopamine production is one of the huge ones that we talk about, in the sense that the neurotransmitter dopamine serves as the primary brain chemical responsible for reward. The reason why that's super important is basically anything we put into our system can basically be converted to dopamine. That can be something as small as having a friendly interaction with somebody, eating our favorite food, things like that. But when we start to introduce substance, you get any of them, most of them do get converted in our brain to dopamine, and it feels like a reward. That's where we start to pick up on that feeling of euphoria, the feeling of happiness, the feeling of warmth, comfort, all of those things that sometimes we associate substances with. But the challenge with that is because it floods our brain with dopamine and gives us all those feelings we're looking for sometimes, there's a payoff for that. And basically at that point in time, we're looking at withdrawal. Because basically, our brain starts to become more and more dependent on having that level of dopamine in our system and that feeling to feel that way. And when we don't have that substance, we start to have what affects of withdrawal, where basically our brain is no longer capable of producing that level of dopamine, giving us that same feel, and then we start always chasing that feeling, and thus we're needing more and more just to actually feel a base level baseline like we see over here. So we see that with the lights here, our baseline looks something like this, where basically you have different little transmitters and neurons that are firing, and they have a nice steady rhythm. When we have intoxication, our brain is flooded with that dopamine, and at that point in time we have all of those feelings, but we also have loss of control, we have lowered inhibition, we're taking more risky behaviors, and especially with teenagers that already are more prone to have risk, it's a really dangerous place to be. At that point in time, when you come down to withdraw, you actually start to see that basically it's that mix in between the baseline and intoxication. But unfortunately, with all of these little interruptions in there, we start to feel really, really bad, and we're trying to find a way to get ourselves back to at least that baseline. The nice thing is the brain is really resilient, and if we do change our behaviors and our intake of substance, for the most part, we have the ability to come back pretty close through treatment and abstinence of substance to get us back to the baseline. So, with all of that, one of the things I want to leave you with is that the brain is incredibly resilient, and it's one of the things that helps us do everything that we possibly do. The longer we can wait before we introduce substance, the healthier our youth are going to be. It's one of the biggest things we can encourage our youth to do. There's always going to be a chance later in life to potentially try substances if you so choose to. That being said, the healthiest choice is always to not use, and that's what we encourage. My name is Jason. Thank you so much.
We are going to take a quick time out. A whole lot more HCAM news ahead. Don't go anywhere.
HCAM is supported by our viewers. Thank you. And by the Hopkinton Independent newspaper and online news site. The newspaper reaches 100% of the homes and businesses in town, and the website is updated daily with exclusive Hopkinton content. Readers can receive a daily newsletter and breaking news alerts via email.
Saturday morning cartoons are back. Every Saturday at 8 a.m., HCAM's Toon Time has an hour of classic cartoons, from Betty Boop to Superman to Popeye to Bugs Bunny and more. You'll see your old favorites and discover new ones. So tune in to Toon Time, Saturdays at 8, and start your weekend off with a laugh.
Actually, just the glory. We asked 100 fourth graders, what is a state in the western part of the United States?
Come on, world map, where are you? Confident.
Confident?
Very confident, apparently.
Fabulous.
I'm Cindy Donda, and I'll see you there.
Welcome back to HCAM News. The Historical Commission recently discussed a new mixed-use development. Here's a look. The Hopkinton Historical Commission recently met and discussed the property of the former Hopkinton Drug, 2 parcels at 4852 Main Street and a land at 6 Cedar Street.
Richard, since I have, so this is the image that Richard is proposing. If you look in the corner, you should see my home.
And is that view Cedar right now?
That's Main Street.
Main Street, really.
That would be Main Street. And then if you look to the left, which is a little bit out of frame, there you go.
Yeah, got it. So then, and that very long, wide boat arch, is that like for parking underground?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And then the
Life safety fire apparatus as well.
Other kinds of uses.
Yeah, so for retail and.
So would the park be in the front on Main Street, or would it be behind?
It's all underground.
All under.
Underground and behind with a courtyard in the back. But
Is there 1 or 2 levels of underground parking?
one.
Well, we're still early. We are still in sort of a engineering design phase. So we have things.
Richard, maybe before you go into some of the design elements, Richard, I'd just like to back up maybe 2 exhibits just to give a little further explanation.
Sure.
So, I gotta take a picture of that.
The historical narrative, there's much to do about the boot factories that were there previously that were ultimately wiped out in a fire. So what our thought is from a development perspective, the next 2 exhibits are 2 kind of examples, was to kind of grab as many elements as these that we felt would kind of pay tribute to kind of that old history, from that area and from that time period. So what we tasked Richard with doing was not only a layout that we felt like kind of worked for the topography and everything else, but also layer in various elements from kind of yesteryear.
The proposal calls for the development of a mixed-use complex featuring shops, businesses, and housing.
This is your proposed rendering.
Yep, the evening rendering, indeed. So just generally, what we looked at was to try to create a facade on Main Street, which kind of spoke to some of the architecture and the vernacular that's been established over the years on Main Street. Some brick facades, some cornices, some bracketing, arch windows, and so on. And generally on the Cedar Street side, it was more of a residential feel. And you can see that as we kind of step down Cedar Street, down the hill, 3 pediments, which are working with our residential piece. And you can also see down there that there's some underground parking associated with the residential, kind of a podium, if you will, with the residential units over it. These are 4 rent units, at least proposed. And then working back to Main Street on the uphill side towards the common, we do have a public parking underneath that archway, which serves approximately 27 spaces with some accessible spaces and so on, which would feed the retail, which you can see is elevated at some level, where you get in on grade on the right side, and then you're walking on a walkway that serves the storefronts that face Main Street and turn the corner onto Cedar for a portion. And then it has apartments above. So we looked at this, and we've kind of got an urban facade and a more residential facade, and then we have a corner element which helps us turn the corner and really bring some prominence to that intersection, which is an important intersection in Hopkinton. We've got some street trees, some benches, some landscaping, and so on, which turn that corner. And again, residential above, some balconies, arch windows. When we looked at the architecture of the town hall and the boot factory, and just tried to pull some elements in that would, fit, if you will, the Main Street vernacular, and also create a more of a residential feel on the Cedar Street side. So right now we're looking at, units above, retail, parking, and just trying to make it fit as best we can. And again, it's a concept at this point, and we just offer it as our kind of first pass at something that we think makes sense for that corner.
You can view the entirety of the meeting at hcam.tv/gov or on our YouTube page. On Thursday, February 29th, 15th seeded Masconomet hosted 18th seeded Hiller boys hockey in the Division II round of 32. Hillers led 4-2 heading into the third period, but Masconomet tied things up at 4 apiece and forced overtime. Alan Weitzman ended up scoring the game-winning goal 4 minutes into overtime for Masconomet, and on to the round of 16 they go. Masconomet advances on and improves to 14-8. Hillers finish their season with a record of 14 wins, 5 losses, and 2 ties. Congratulations on a terrific season to head coach Scott Hayes and the rest of the team. On Friday, March 1st, the 24th seeded Hiller girls basketball team visited 9th seeded Quincy. The girls fought hard but would fall short. Quincy took the game by a final of 55-36. Quincy advances on and improves to 18-3. The Hillers' season comes to an end with 10 wins and 11 losses. Congratulations to head coach Mike Greco and the team on a great season. On Saturday, March 2nd, 6th seeded Hiller boys basketball hosted 38th seeded Middleborough in the Division II round of 32. Hillers started off the game with a nice run. And it's going to be Hiller ball. Pantera claiming possession. Willetson for 3. Yes! What a start for the Hillers. A 9-0 run to start things. Now a steal. Iannelli up for the shot. Count it! It was an 18-14 Hiller lead heading into the second quarter.
What to do with it?
Youngquist gets it over. 3 attempt. And knocking it down, Ryan Marzelli by Davenport. Shot from up top and knocking it down, Ryan Marzelli. Middleborough outscored the Hillers in the second quarter 20-12 and led the game 34-30 heading into the second half. Hillers hurry into the offensive zone. Pantera looking for Marcinowski out to Dadajian. Dadajian trying to work his way through, kicks it out to Cho for 3. Got it! Hillers outscored Middleborough 18-15 in the third quarter, and it was a 49-48 Middleborough lead heading into the final 8 minutes. Pick and roll here, Marzelli gets it over. Underneath, up with the reverse, and in goes Roach. Middleborough came up with some big turnovers and outscored the Hillers 22-10 in the fourth quarter and took the game 71-58. Hopkinton's season comes to an end with a record of 17-4. Middleborough improved to 14-8 and advances on to the round of 16. Congratulations to Coach Keene and the team on a great season. Congratulations to Josie, Abby, and Alice of the Hiller indoor track and field team. They had a great showing at the MTSCA Pentathlon this past Wednesday and captured 7th place. Also, a big congratulations to Hiller Cheer on a great showing at this past weekend's regionals. They competed hard and did a terrific job with their routine. It's time to tell you about some happenings in town you should know about on Saturday, April 6th at 7:30 to 11:30 a.m. Boy Scout Troop 4 in Hopkinton will be hosting a pancake breakfast. There will also be a silent auction for some great items. You could buy tickets in advance. For more information or for tickets, you could contact Boy Scout Troop 4 at pancakes/breakfast at troop4hopkinton.com. You can also find this information on our website, hcam.tv. A night with Isabella Stewart Gardner will take place on Tuesday, April 2nd from 6:30 to 7:30 at the Hopkinton Public Library. Join them for a character reenactor. Jessica Piala presents a dramatic portrayal of Isabella Stewart Gardner at the Hopkinton Public Library, April 2nd, starting at 6:30 p.m. Our picture of the week at Hopkinton High School, the South Asian Circle of Hopkinton, along with the Hopkinton High School Muslim Student Association, combined to throw a Ramadan celebration. You can see the news segment on our website, hcam.tv, and also be on the lookout for the full presentation. Upcoming town government meetings include on Thursday, March 14th at 7 p.m. We'll have the school committee meeting, and on Monday, March 18th, airing on HCAM TV at 7 p.m., we'll have the planning board meeting. For more information, you can check out hcam.tv/gov or the town website, hopkintonma.gov. Believe it or not, we are out of time for this edition of HCAM News, but don't worry, next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m., we will be back. For everyone at HCAM, I'm Tom Nappy. As always, we thank you for watching. Take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye, everybody.